Natal Saturn in Sagittarius. Important takeaways. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down Natal Saturn in Sagittarius, everything you need to know about this placement and how to master this placement and what you can expect when someone has this. Now, I've done a video on this before, but I wanted to redo it and make it better. All right, so let's go. Natal Saturn in Sagittarius. So Saturn represents our fears and insecurities and what we need to master in this life to feel successful and accomplished. That's what Saturn represents. It represents our fears and insecurities and what we need to master in this life to feel successful and accomplished. Saturn also represents how we see our father, our experience with him, and our experience with authority figures. That's also what Saturn represents, our father, our experience with him, and our experience with authority figures. Sagittarius is associated with higher knowledge and expansion of our mind and experiences. That's what Sagittarius represents. It represents all things involving higher knowledge, knowledge that operates on a higher plane, and expansion of our mind and our experiences. Natal Saturn and Sagittarius people have fears and insecurities surrounding their ability to travel and expand beyond their comfort zone and be the true philosophers they know they are. Okay, so this is the fears and insecurities that Natal Saturn and Sagittarius people face and they have to overcome. They have to overcome any fears that has to do with, their ability to travel beyond their comfort zone. Because a lot of times what Natal Saturn and Sagittarius people will do is they'll just stick to their comfort zone. They just stick to what they know. They don't expand. They don't travel. They don't expand their minds. They don't expand their experiences. They don't expand beyond their comfort zone, and they're not philosophers that share all the knowledge that they've accumulated. So this is where their fears and insecurities are, and they have to overcome this. You have to master Sagittarius energy. Be somebody that has all this knowledge and shares this knowledge with the world. Be somebody that's well-traveled, somebody that's a philosopher. Celebrity example, Michael Jackson and Martin Luther King Jr. Now with Michael Jackson, I could go over this in so many ways about how, to show you how he had natal Saturn and Sagittarius. But the example I used last time, which was so interesting, is finding out that he had this. Michael Jackson, when he was younger, had a serious fear of flying. Like if you ever watched the Jackson 5 movie, he had to be physically dragged onto the plane. He hated flying. You could not get him onto a plane. Like he would cry and would cry and would cry. And not only that, you see this in many other ways, but I thought that was the most interesting example because you see that there was a fear associated with flying and traveling. And with Martin Luther King is really a better example because Martin Luther King really mastered what Sagittarius represents. He was a philosopher. He was literally a preacher. He was someone who shared knowledge. He was someone who was optimistic. He was someone that instilled faith in people that everything is going to be okay. We're going to get through this. We're going to overcome. Like Martin Luther King Jr. is the true representation of Sagittarius energy. And he mastered that energy. He was very well traveled. He was a man that was full of knowledge and he shared his knowledge with the world. So that's really that. So Martin Luther King and Michael Jackson shows you the downside of it, having that fear of not wanting to travel. And Martin Luther King shows you how the best way to live out natal Saturn and Sagittarius is you have to be someone that masters knowledge, masters being a teacher and a mentor, and someone that's well-traveled, travels all over the world, and just accumulates all these experiences, all these great experiences. The father is seen as Sagittarius-like. He's seen as well-traveled, knowledgeable, optimistic, opinionated, and a rolling stone. Like I said before, Saturn tells us how we see our father. The sign that it's in tells us how we see our father. So when you have Saturn in Sagittarius, you see your father as Sagittarius-like. You see him as well-traveled. You see him as knowledgeable, optimistic, opinionated, and someone that's a rolling stone, someone you can't get a hold of. And what's funny is about Michael Jackson is his father was definitely a rolling stone. He was very opinionated. He came off as a very, harsh man, a man that just would tell it like it is. And then with Martin Luther King, his father was a preacher. His father was a pastor. So just to show you how that works. This is similar to having natal Saturn in the 9th house because Sagittarius rules the 9th house. If you have this placement, you want to make sure you study natal Saturn in the 9th house descriptions as well, because you will find that information resonates with you and it sounds like you because Sagittarius rules the 9th house. Natal Saturn and Sagittarius people have to overcome their self-imposed limitations that limits their ability to expand, learn, teach, and grow. Okay, this is very important. If you have natal Saturn in Sagittarius, you have to overcome any self-imposed limitations that you put on yourself that limits your ability to expand. And going back to the Martin Luther King Jr. example as well, just to show you how, this is someone that truly mastered this, is think about all the limitations that were in front of him, dealing with racism and all that stuff. And he overcame that. Like, he had an optimistic attitude and he overcame that, and he didn't let it stop him. He still became that mentor, that knowledgeable, that well-traveled person, and he shared his message with the world. And that's everything you need to know. Thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe, comment down below. Let me know what you think. Take care.